We spend our lifetime creating the containers of our life, and sometimes we don't pay enough attention to what we placed in those containers. And we get to the later chapters in our lives and we begin to wonder whether our container is actually holding what matters most in life. In our early years, we accumulate. But in our later years, if we're wise, we want to divest. And both are important. Both are part of the journey. We spend the majority of our lives often focused outward. And when it's time to look inward, the danger is finding there's nothing there. Carl Jung wrote, "One cannot live in the afternoon of life according to the program of life's morning. For what was great in the morning will be of little importance in the evening." In other words, what worked in the first half of life is often inadequate to meet the challenges of our mature years. And there is no doubt that both the American and the Australian culture in many ways are youth-oriented cultures that value the three A's, the three A's: achievement, affluence, and appearance. As we grow older, we really need to center ourselves around new values. Values that aren't so externally based, but values that nurture our inner life. I love this quote by Joan Chittister. She said, "This is the time to think of higher matters than looking 10 years younger." Wonderful as that can be. We must begin to attend to the inner self now. These years, the maturing years, are for allowing the interior life to direct what we do and who we are. So the three A's of a youth-oriented culture are achievement, affluence, appearance. Perhaps to age with grace and resiliency, we need to value the three A's of a wisdom-oriented culture. Three very different A's: acceptance, amazement, appreciation. Let's look at the first A of aging with grace and wisdom: acceptance. Vital to our mental and spiritual health is an acceptance of reality. Not an endorsement of it, nor resignation, but an acceptance of our current reality. Acceptance that we are growing older. Our youth culture lives in the illusion that we can somehow avoid or put off getting older. One of the greatest sources of stress in our lives is the picture in our minds of the way we think life is supposed to be. We often think that, we'll get to living our lives. We'll get back to really living our lives tomorrow. Tomorrow when the mess is cleaned up, or the problem is solved, or the conflict is resolved, or tomorrow when our bodies ache less, or when the grief is healed and the tears are dried. But all of that is life. There is no such thing as perfect, or the life that we wished we had. There is only the life we actually have, the lives that we are actually living. I remember going to a yoga class, and I was twice the age of every single person in the class. And they all looked like pretzels, They could twist their bodies in every imaginable direction. And there I was. I looked like a Polish sausage that could hardly move at all. But I was trying to keep up with the people around me, which was impossible. They had very different bodies than my body, and they were 20 times more flexible than I am. And I was struggling, and I was sweating, and I was in a lot of pain. It was hardly a relaxing experience. And the instructor sensed, what was going on internally for me, and she came and she kindly, gently whispered to me, "Stephen, just let yourself start where you are. Don't try to be where you think you should be." She said, rather than keep fighting yourself, breathe compassion into your next stretch. I wonder what would happen if we let ourselves be where we are. If we stop trying to fight ourselves, trying to fight reality. If we breathe compassion into the next step, into the next hour, into the next day. When we are able to let go of how we think life is supposed to be, we can actually meet life as it is with courage and grace. When we can accept our aging with all of its challenges, all of its limitations, it is then that we can find the joy and the beauty that are part of aging. Emily Kingsley, one of the writers for Sesame Street, the children's show Sesame Street, she found herself in a situation that she found difficult, if not kind of impossible for her to accept. She was expecting her first child, dreaming of what her child would be like, dreaming the kind of future she hoped for her child. But when Jason, her baby, was born, it didn't go the way she thought it would. Jason had Down syndrome. Now, it was 1974, and people knew very little about Down syndrome back then. Emily's doctor actually told her she should expect very little from her child. Now, if any of you have ever had the sheer blessing to know a person with Down syndrome, you know how entirely false those predictions were. But Emily remembers crying for 7 days straight. The story she thought she was living, the future she was anticipating, completely unraveled. And she was unwilling to accept her doctor's predictions. The first thing she did was find a new doctor who encouraged her to give Jason as much stimulation as possible. And she threw herself into this new mission, and Jason was exceeding everyone's expectations. But Emily began to realize that she was working so incredibly hard with the dream of making Jason like the baby she had always expected, like the baby she thought she was supposed to have. And there was actually a part of her that believed, if she worked hard enough, if she stimulated his senses enough, if she challenged him enough, they could somehow overcome the Down syndrome. I wonder sometimes if we think that about aging sometimes, if we just work hard enough, if we just find the right formula, the right secret, we can somehow overcome the inevitability of aging. Emily began to realize that Jason would always have Down syndrome. That was their story. And she stopped asking why. Why was Jason born different than other children? Instead, she began to ask a different question. How can I create the kind of life for Jason where both he and I can thrive? Similarly, imagine if we ask different questions rather than why? Why is this happening to me? Why am I feeling this way? Why am I experiencing this? Why is this so hard? How can I build a life for myself now in the reality I face today where I can flourish? Emily wrote this incredible short piece called Welcome to Holland. She actually wrote it for parents who have children with special needs. But I really think the story is for all of us. All of us who might be struggling to accept the realities of the lives we actually live. I really think the story is for those of us struggling to accept the realities that come with aging. Emily writes, life throws curves at all of us, and we find ourselves living a different story than the story we planned. When you're going to have a baby, it's like planning a fabulous vacation trip to Italy. You buy a bunch of guidebooks, you make wonderful plans, the Colosseum, the Michelangelo David, the gondolas in Venice. You learn some handy phrases in Italian, and it's so exciting. After months of eager anticipation, the day finally arrives. You pack your bags, and then off you go. Several hours later, the plane lands, and the stewardess says, "Welcome to Holland." Holland? Wait, what do you mean? What do you mean Holland? I signed up for Italy. I mean, all my life I've dreamed of Italy. But there's a change in the flight plans. You've landed in Holland, and there's no return ticket. The important thing is, they haven't taken you to a horrible, disgusting place of pestilence and famine and disease. It's just a different place, an unexpected place, an unfamiliar place, where you need new guidebooks. You need to learn a whole new language. You'll meet a whole new group of people you would never have met before. But after you've been there a while, you catch your breath. You begin to look around. And you begin to notice that Holland has windmills. Holland has tulips. And Holland even has Rembrandts. But everyone you know is busy coming and going from Italy. And they're all bragging about what a wonderful time they had there. And for the rest of your life, you'll say, yeah, that's where I was supposed to go. That's what I had planned. And the pain of that will never really ever go away. Because the loss of that dream, it's part of your story. But it's not the whole story or the end of the story. If you spend the rest of your life mourning the fact that you didn't go to Italy, if you spend the rest of your life wishing that somehow life was different, you may never be free to enjoy the very special, very lovely things about Holland. So when we're able to let go, when we're able to let go of how we think life is supposed to be, we can meet life as it is with courage and grace. When we're able to accept and meet life as it is, we're actually able to recognize and be amazed by the gifts that are present in each day, like windmills and tulips. So two vital aspects of soulful aging are acceptance and amazement. Abraham Heschel said the goal is to live your life in radical amazement, taking nothing for granted. You know, there's a tendency in the youth culture to take life for granted because you just assume there's always going to be tomorrow. As we age, our sense of time changes. Life doesn't go on forever. We recognize that we're in the third act and recognize the importance of this day and that every day, every single day that you get up is a gift, and every breath you take is a gift. The degree to which we no longer take life for granted, and the degree to which we're actually awake to the gift of each breath, each moment, each day, that's a measure of the joy that we will experience in life. Gratitude. Gratitude is vital to our emotional and spiritual well-being. You know, there's a beautiful poem by Jane Kenyon. It's called Otherwise. And this poem has this amazing capacity to interrupt our anxiety with gratitude. Because reminding ourselves daily that it might have been otherwise can actually lead us to gratitude for the ordinary, often overlooked simple gifts that are present every single day. As I like to say, that a grateful heart is a peaceful heart, is an open heart. Jane Kenyon, the poet, died of leukemia at the age of 47. She wrote this poem shortly before her death with a profound sense that things would soon be otherwise. And here's the poem. It's called Otherwise by Jane Kenyon. I got out of bed on two strong legs. It might have been otherwise. I ate cereal, sweet milk, ripe, flawless peach. It might have been otherwise. I took the dog uphill to the birchwood. All morning, I did the work I love. At noon, I lay down with my mate. It might have been otherwise. We ate dinner together at a table with silver candlesticks. It might have been otherwise. I slept in a bed in a room with paintings on the walls and planned another day just like this day. But one day, I know it will be otherwise. So the first half of our life values achievement, affluence, appearance. The 3 A's of aging, the second half of our life, or even the third act, is the wisdom to value acceptance, amazement. And lastly, the third A, appreciation. Because of the role that I play in life for my work, I'm privileged to spend time with people at the end of their lives. I have yet to hear anyone, and I've spent a lot of time with a lot of people near at their bedsides, near their death, as they are nearing that transition from what I call the transition to more life. At that sacred time, at that holy time, at that liminal space, I have yet to hear anyone on their deathbed talk to me about what they achieved, or tell me how much money they have, or moan and groan and complain about their appearance. What I hear people share with me on their deathbed is a deep, deep appreciation for the people in their life, the people who've loved them, who've cared for them, and who they love. And if there are regrets, and there are always regrets, they often say, I wish I would have forgiven more easily. I wish I would have shown more appreciation. I read a study of over 1,000 married couples that were trying to understand why their marriages were joyless and full of conflict and hurt. And the study found that one of the primary reasons of unhappiness in marriage was the feeling of being unappreciated, taken for granted. I mean, ask employees what is the source of low morale in the workplace, and they will say it's the feeling of being taken for granted. Feeling like what I contribute isn't noticed or appreciated. There's something deep within us that desires to be seen, to be valued, to be loved. So maybe the wisdom of aging is no longer spending our energy building our containers, trying to prove our worth to others. Maybe the wisdom of aging is appreciating other people's worth. Taking the time to appreciate the people in your life. To really genuinely express gratitude for them. To see them. To really see them. And value them. Maybe the wisdom of aging is asking for forgiveness. And forgiving. Because we realize carrying those old resentments and hurts in our container only makes us weary and bitter. We want to make peace with the past so that we can love and appreciate those in our lives in the present. So we spend the first half of our lives building the container. The second half of our lives, we need to make sure that we don't find we've spent so much time building the outer container that the container itself is empty. We need to make sure the containers of our lives are really holding what matters most. Acceptance, amazement, appreciation. Those are three gifts that will nurture our inner life and help us face the lives that we actually have, the lives that we are actually living with grace and resilience. I want to finish with this blessing for aging by a writer by the name of Kate Bowler. The life I think I'm supposed to have is a life where I don't need glasses, but I'm going to have to wear these glasses to share this reading. It's called A Blessing for Aging Gracefully. Blessed are you who have reached a new age, even if it doesn't seem to fit. It may feel too big, too reductive, too limiting. It may be marked by a life you barely recognize. The kids who have all moved out or settled somewhere far away. The work that no longer sets the daily hum. The life partner who's gone. And friends you've outlived. The body that doesn't allow for the hobby you love anymore. The monthly check that doesn't provide the flexibility you'd hoped for. Wasn't I young just a second ago? Will I ever recognize the person staring back in the mirror? What's left to do that really counts? How do I know if I am or if I ever was enough? Blessed are you who have lost so much. You whose body hurts. You who aren't who you used to be. You who no longer have the identity markers that once defined you so clearly. You who attend more funerals than weddings these days. You who hold your new grandbabies and have held your dying parents' hands. May we be given the eyes to notice the ways life can still be beautiful and rich and full in the midst of so much that has been lost. May we be reminded that we're not done yet. In a world that equates age with liability, it's time for a reminder that you are a gift. You give advice. You hold on to family recipes. You remember that thing that happened. And honestly, we shouldn't have forgotten. You think our kids are beautiful. And our bad partners should be soundly dumped. You kept the photo album. You hold our stories. Thank you. Even when the world isn't paying attention, may you get a glimmer of a reminder that these little things add up to something that is and always will be beautiful.